Poozers, this is All New First Issues, the weekly #1 comics review show. These are the new releases for June 8th, 2016. I'm the Archivist, and it's almost 5 in the morning, so let's not dawdle. Civil War II, Amazing Spider-Man #1, written by Christos Gage, art by Travel Foreman, and colors by Rain Barreto. Peter Parker is palling around with Ulysses because why not? It gives us a chance to catch up on what's been going on in Peter's life and a foreshadowing of someone putting on a costume to fight him. So, for trying to say a lot, this really doesn't. When the crux of your story proper, Civil War II, is two sides fighting over whether or not to follow a precog's visions, and you want to tie into that, don't make it a fluff story about Spidey palling around with him. The writing is competent but pointless, and the art is good. There's not a lot to say because this is literally, like I said, a fluff piece that I think is trying to humanize Ulysses, but that really means nothing when he actually has very little to do with the divide that is Civil War II. It's the principle of the matter. And no, Ulysses, every vision you've had has actually been wrong so far, because it's been stopped before it's actually come to pass. Be it the Celestial Destroyer or that random guy that wanted to ice a couple in this. Seriously, another reason this is kind of stupid is because this guy just randomly gets visions of earth-shattering events or a simple murder? Come on. So yeah, if you want to get it, then you've got it already, but god, that was ignorable. But we aren't done with Civil War tie-ins just yet. Marvel Civil War II, Gods of War #1, written by Dan Abnett, art by Emilio Leso, with colors by Guru EFX. So Hercules and Amadeus Cho, as the Hulk, are in a bar. Herc talks about how he comes in and orders a drink, but always resists actually drinking to show that he is still strong. However, a rumble and they both run outside. The Celestial Destroyer from the main Civil War II story is outside, and all the superheroes are running to fight him. However, Hercules is set upon by his own enemies, who cannot be detected by Ulysses' visions. So, Herc has to get the Gods of War back together to bring out some epic fighting against the Storm. This was as good as the solo Hercules book has been. With Hercules staying on the fringes of Civil War itself, he gets to mostly avoid the ramifications happening. But in that, why is this a tie into Civil War II? It's actually the culmination of Herc's solo book so far. I guess it's a chance to get people reading a damn good book, but it just felt so tacked on. Anyways, I have a review of the first Hercules up on my Facebook page, and it's awesome. Abnett knows how to make Hercules and his allies fresh, and yet revel in the fact that they are, in fact, not new characters. And the art is pretty great too, with a solid style that gives a great amount of detail, while still maintaining that comic book feel. The solo series is totally worth a buy, and this is a book that you really need to follow that through to where it is now to get the full grandness of this. So go get the back issues of Herc and then hop into this story. It's good, I swear. Well, another run of Marvel's timely comics half-trades are out, with Drax, Doctor Strange, and Daredevil getting the treatment. Like last time, I've done reviews of each on my Facebook page, with Drax being the only one I could fully recommend based off of that. Though if you're a fan wanting to check these out but don't want to plant the money on a full trade, these are worth the buy. Next, we head into the indie scene with Images, Midnight of the Soul #1, written and drawn by Howard Chaykin, with colors by Jesus Aburtov. 5 years after leaving the hellhole of World War II, Joel's life stateside has been hell. Therapy, hospitals, and failing at his dream of becoming a writer has been getting to him. All of that comes to a head, and for the first time in a year, he's mad enough to leave the house on his motorcycle with a gun. The damaged soldier coming home is an often used story starter to get the ball rolling, but rather than using it as a way to go, "Damn, that's why he's so badass at killing," Chaykin uses it to explain his character and the frustration, the shattered nature of him in this world. It is because of being inside his head, truly feeling like he's got nothing else, just adds to the ending of him riding off into the night with a gun. And the art, also from Chaykin, works great to complement the heart and head of this story. So this is definitely a book you at home should read. While it may not be the most action-packed, it is a phenomenal literary read. Onward to Time Comics Sherlock, A Study in Pink #1, adapted by J. I don't know if it's J or J dot or J period. Doesn't really matter. Doesn't really matter to me. So, Sherlock Manga finally hits the shelves in the UK and the US. Basically, it's a manga version of the first part of the Sherlock show's first episode, starting with the suicide and then the press conference, and ends with Watson joining Sherlock after that whole damn my leg moment. If you know what I'm talking about, then you've already seen this show. If you haven't seen the show yet, definitely give it a watch. Last I knew it was on Netflix. God knows if it is anymore. However, that makes me question the niche this is meant for. I mean, there's definitely fans of manga, and something like the Sherlock character works amazingly well in that. I'd argue that seeing it done this way works better than if it were done in a traditional comic book format. Honestly, this is definitely a great work for those that love manga and Sherlock. So basically anyone who likes Sherlock and posts online about it. The art is superb. The writing does lift from the Stephen Moffat script, obviously, but it's paneled out well enough to be a solid read for fans of manga and Sherlock. Even if you've never been interested in Sherlock, I think if you have an interest in manga, it works great as a way to get you onto the Sherlock train. Next we have American Mythology's The Pink Panther #1, with 5 separate creative teams for 5 fantastic stories. In the same vein as the Three Stooges, this is a great collection of shorts involving the Pink Panther and all of the fan favorite characters from the show, like the Ant and the Aardvark and that one dude. Either way. Now, this is obviously less dialogue driven than the Three Stooges, but the visuals really push the gags amazingly well. And the art is a must for a book like this, and everyone is on point, especially with Adrian Ropp setting up spectacular for the originals in this, though in varying capacities. And of course, there's a Pink Panther classic in this, so all in all, and I know this one's a quick review, but there's nothing to say other than this is a great book for fans of the Pink Panther, and a solid buy idea for the next generation to know and love a character so ingrained in the pop culture. Go and check it out now. Then there's Valiant 4001 AD Bloodshot #1, written by Jeff Lemire, art by Doug Braithwaite, and colors by Brian Reber. Thank God for Valiant. Without them, I would forget how to do tie-in books properly. So in 4001 AD, with New Japan falling and all that good stuff, a 3D image human printer, DNA printer scanner thing, kicks over. Bloodshot is reborn through nanites, now in a ghostly red fashion, able to do that cool nanite cloud thing. Bloodbath has only one final mission in his life, and he will complete it, fighting off thugs, all the while carrying a strange obelisk through snow and desert, until reaching a town. Pressing the big red button on the obelisk, the lid opens, revealing, well, you'll have to read the rest for that. Is there something I can say about this that I haven't said about any of the other 4001 AD event books? Jeff Lemire really hits the heart of Bloodshot with this, but it doesn't feel out of place for the character either. It's fantastic what about the future for this character. And the art is in that same vein. It's great, showing a slightly more advanced version of Bloodshot without making him look too different or feeling off. And like I said about the Man of War tie-in, this isn't a needed tie-in. It doesn't assist in the main narrative, but expands so well on the whole Bloodshot mythos and the Valiant universe in general that it is a must-read if you've been following the Valiant books at all. And if you haven't, then that's your loss. Go back, pick it up. There's nothing stopping you. Before we hop into DC proper, we have an intercompany crossover. Boom Studios and DC Comics Lumberjanes Gotham Academy #1. Written by China Clugston Flores, pencils by Rosemary Valero O'Connell, inks by Maddie Gonzalez, and colors by Whitney Koger. So both the Lumberjanes and the detective clubs from Gotham Academy are on their way to a strange cabin in the woods, but they meet up on the way, and after a bit of friction, they team up because they're starting to be chased by cow-headed cloaked beings. A long time ago, I had Jello do Lumberjanes #1 on one of my versions of the show. I do believe that episode is up. I'm sorry if it's not. Primarily because it's not something I could properly give a review to, because it's not my thing. I disliked the art, feeling the models were too cartoony and loose to really get me to want to read it, and while I did read it, the comedy was very much something I didn't dig, whereas Jello loved it and followed it until we sorta couldn't due to baby bills. And that's kind of what I have to say on this. While I'm unabashedly enamored with Gotham Academy, this wasn't for me. The art was simply too cartoony, and maybe it's because I've softened in like the last year or two. There were some solid jokes here, but ultimately felt really busy without having the meat to be busy. However, as I pointed out, the style is very much not my thing, but it is definitely the thing for other people, and I can wholly admit that this is my personal biasness coming through. I just may not. I could be on. I'm just on the just doesn't get it side of thing. I mean, this Adventure Time. I know. I need to get into better stuff. However, as I pointed out, the style is very much not my thing, but it is definitely the thing for other people, and I can admit when I'm the one that it doesn't connect with because it's on me, as the majority of everyone else can really enjoy this and Lumberjanes in general, so it's definitely worth the buy just to see which side of the fence you're on. And now to DC proper. DC's Wacky Raceland #1, written by Ken Pontic, art by Leonardo Manco, with colors Mariana Sanzone. I got nothing. The plot is a convoluted race thing that tries being hardcore and over the top, but there's just like large sections missing when it comes to that. I was all for the weird remake of Scooby-Doo, Scooby Apocalypse, but the problems that everyone thought would be in that book was in this one for me. I mean, the writing, like I said, is in fact over the top and kinda gritty, but that really only works when you have characters you want to follow through it. Now, Lobo, Harley Quinn, what the hell's the name of Muttley's owner? Doesn't matter. Honestly, there's just not a lot there. The best way they could have done this book was following one car every issue, or, cut to different cars during, but still showing the same race for a couple issues and showing a race to it. So, honestly, I have to say that this is skippable. I mean, the art isn't horrible, but it's nothing to write home about, so yeah, it's just skippable. Now for the Rebirth section to wrap things up. DC's Wonder Woman Rebirth #1, written by Greg Rucka, art by Matthew Clark and Sean Parsons for the first 14 pages, Liam Sharp for the last 5 pages, with Jeremy Coldwell on colors for the first 14 pages, and Laura Martin for the last 5. Wonder Woman uses a lasso of truth on herself in a wondering sort of way to tell herself who she is and why she does what she does, but then her vision starts to clear. She then strips away her new 52 outfit, getting back into the iconic gold-trimmed suit, before going to Olympus, or maybe it's not Olympus. Whoever's been toying with the world, she's ready to fight for the truth. I'm not sure whether I liked this or not. I mean, it's not bad, with bringing back the iconic look and making a plot surrounding her trying to find the truth about her life, but it's not exactly good, treading the similar who is she storyline that drags down so many Wonder Woman books before this. So honestly, I can say that it's a good rebirth issue leading into her bi-weekly book. So it's readable if you're interested in it. You're just not, I don't think you're going to connect to it if you're not a Wonder Woman fan. Next is DC's The Flash Rebirth #1, written by Joshua Williamson, art by Carmine Del Giandomenico, colors by Ivan Placencia. Barry Allen is running lab work on a case very similar to his mother's, but he keeps having visions. That's where this crosses over with the Universe Rebirth issue. As the original Wally West comes out of the Speed Force, Barry finally remembers, and they talk about who's been altering the world, before Wally heads off in one direction, and Barry goes to see Batman for help. I don't know what I was expecting from this, honestly. I mean, the best part of this was in the DC Universe Rebirth #1 from last week, and it's just edited down. The best part of this was in DC Universe Rebirth #1 a couple weeks ago, and just edited down here, so I think the writing works if you've only been following the New 52 Flash, since there's a lot of that going on in here, but they revert his memories back to the post-crisis ones we all know and love, sort of. But I have to say that I'm not a fan of the art all that much. For the Flash, you kind of need to have a sharper image to really feel the speed of things. When the art is slightly loose or at least rough, the kinetic feel of each panel hinders the actual speed meant to portray when Flash is being the Flash. But that's my personal opinion on it. Flash fans, new and old, should enjoy this book immensely, but me personally, I've only ever been able to get into the Flash in bursts anyway, so take that for what it is. And finally, DC's Aquaman Rebirth #1, written by Dan Abnett, pencils by Scott Eaton and Oscar Jimenez, inks by Mark Morales and Oscar Jimenez, with colors by Gabe El Taib. Basically, this is just an update from the first issue of the New 52 Aquaman book. I mean, there's a lot of talk about Aquaman being a hero, a menace, him talking to fish, including a very similar speech that he gave at a diner in the original New 52. In fact, the same diner pops up, and generally just a roundabout way of giving his status in the world, while he fights against the rogue elements of Atlantis wanting to destroy the surface world, called the Deluge. Overall, it's not a bad start if you're just jumping in, but I think it feels a bit shrug-worthy if you've been following since the spectacular New 52 book started. Abnett's writing, I almost want to say, doesn't fit how I prefer Aquaman. It's just something too averagey about it. Like, his style works great with books about average Joes, or even Hercules, where you have Hercules being portrayed as kind of an average Joe level. But I don't think it should be in a book that should be more higher tier, like Aquaman. It should be a bit more heavier. I think heavier might be a bad phrase for it, but... Plus, come on, at least the New 52 run decided not to make Black Manta the first storyline boss. As for the art, I think it's also good, just a little on the iffy side with Aquaman because there's a bit of a bubbled nature to it, which isn't bad, it just doesn't do it for me. Maybe it's because I'm a fan of the Aquaman comics since the 90s that I have a very specific idea of what I want my Aquaman to be when I read it. But I'm definitely going to have to give this series a solid read when the first real issue comes out. Luckily, I get to do that for the show. And that's a full lid, folks. I know I skipped several comics that were on my pull list, and I even read a few that I didn't put here, but with time constraint, I think I may be altering the format a little later on to make it easier to get these out in time, while still being able to do my many day jobs. Well, job in the loosest sense, since it makes a little bit more than these first issues do. Anyways, catch you on the flip side, Inklings.